KZ Guy 2 here again, No Nonsense Know-How, and today's going to be a brief overview on how to replace the alternator in this 2010 GMC Acadia. This should go for Chevy Traverse as well, and a lot of vehicles with the 3.6 liter. The alternator is located right down here and on my tear-in, and then just give you kind of a run through. But your first step is always going to be going into the trunk and disconnecting the negative terminal of the battery, or if you're comfortable you can remove this 13mm nut here, because this is the cable that comes from the battery. Just once you remove this cable, cover it with some tape or a hose, because this is a live wire with 12 volts, so don't bump your ratchet into a ground when you're removing that. Remove these two 10mm bolts and get your coolant tank out of the way, and then this 10mm on here. You can just slip a hose over that, cover it up, pop this off with a screwdriver. This tank's also got one of these Christmas tree connectors on it, so slide that off. Now we're going to remove the belt. If you're in the driveway, it's a little bit tougher, but you can turn the wheel all the way to one side and get it jacked up a little bit. Removing the 6 22mm nuts and taking the wheel off is not a bad option, but you shouldn't have to. So you come right here with a screwdriver and you just pop the center of these out, and then they'll come out. You can use diagonal cutters to grab these, or once you get them started, this tool helps out good to get the center of those out. And then we have plenty of access to the belt. Take note of the belt valving, or draw yourself a diagram, and then put a 1/2-inch ratchet right on here and turn clockwise to loosen the tension. I got this large breaker bar on there, so you just spin that clockwise and then slip the belt off any pulley you choose. You then use a 15mm ratcheting wrench to loosen the lower alternator bolt. Also has a pulley on there, and they don't give you enough room to get it out, so you just leave it sitting in the alternator. Back up top, before we go removing the power distribution center and the motor mount, let's see if we can get slip and slide this thing out of here without doing that. So you're gonna, I don't think it's possible, but you're going to slide this rubber cover up off the main wire. It's a 13mm nut to get your main battery cable off, which will not be live if you've disconnected it up here, or the negative terminal off the battery. Make sure you do that, very important. And then the two 15mm nuts on the top of the alternator. I'm gonna try to get those studs out of there too. And of course you got this electrical connection too. If you can see where I'm at, you just squeeze in on that. Here I am down here at my thumb. Sometimes these things get stuck, so if you push in on the connector like so, and then you squeeze the tab, you gotta push in and squeeze at the same time, that'll come off. And with all that off, you can see the alternator won't slide back because it hits the AC low pressure hose. So I'm gonna use a 7mm hex socket and remove both of those studs. I think I'll also just get this cover out of my way too, just to make things a little bit more accessible. And oh yeah, that's much nicer looking. Got both those studs out. They look like that. Got the little hex on the end. Now it looks like I should be able to just pull this right up. So once you pull it up about halfway, you can get that pulley off. And I don't know, it doesn't really look like it's gonna come out, but let's find out. And there we go. You roll it around like a little bit. Oh, look at that. No, almost there. And there we go. It's got to smash a couple hoses and whatnot, but she comes out of there. So yeah, I think the good technique is taking those studs out, and that way you don't have to mess with anything over here. New alternator finally got here. Before you go jamming it in there, always double check it side by side. Make sure the pulley is straight, not bent or anything up in the grooves. Good idea to check the rest of your pulleys when the belt's off too, and of course check your belt for any driver up. And yeah, assembly is going to be reverse like usual. I do that in a lot of overview videos. Just make sure once you slip it down into place, before it's fully in place, you are going to have to slip this into the lower alternator hole. And you know, don't forget to get these steel brackets on. Once you get the studs in place, put the steel brackets on, the nuts, plug everything in, and I'll chime back with you here to let you know if there's anything else. I won't lie, getting those studs started back in the threads was very tough. If you don't have a strong arm to hold that alternator up, you might need to get somebody else to help you hold it when you're getting the threads started. And that's a wrap. There was nothing really else in particular to mention. Just make sure you go back to the beginning of the video, maybe re-watch it so you don't forget to put any of those connectors or hoses or anything back together. Get the battery plugged back in. And if you have any luck, when you start it up, it will be charging. Let's find out what this one says. Focus in on that. Boom, perfect. This one was charging all the way up closer to 18 volts before, and now we're charging right around 14.5. Verifying that on the Fluke 88, 14.6. Looks good.